Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the life of Japan's most famous poet, Matsuo Basho. We're going to piece together his story using everything from old historical records to some really fascinating modern analysis. And it all comes down to this one central question. The answer, believe it or not, reveals a way of looking at the world that is frankly more relevant today than ever. So, to understand his love for something useless, we have to start with a pretty big twist. See, Basho wasn't born a poet. That's right, he came into the world in 1644, not with a writing brush in his hand, but with a sword at his side. He was born into the low-ranking samurai class. For a while, his life was on a pretty clear path. He served a young lord named Yoshitada, and get this, they weren't just master and servant. They became real friends, bonding over their shared love of writing poetry. But then, tragedy strikes. His lord dies suddenly, at just 25 years old, and just like that, Basho's entire world is shattered. That stable life he knew, gone. And it forces him to make this radical choice. He abandons his sword and the entire samurai path forever. So he moves to Edo, what we now call Tokyo, and he actually finds success. He becomes a really respected poetry teacher. But just when you think he's found stability again, he makes another decision that must have seemed absolutely insane to everyone around him. He literally walked away from it all, the comfort, the fame, and chose this life of deliberate isolation. It really seems like he felt that worldly success was becoming a distraction, almost like a creative poison. He had to escape it to find his real voice. And his choice of personal symbol here is just fascinating. His new little hut was surrounded by these tough, hardy reeds. Practical, resilient, invasive. He hated them. Instead, he cherished this one gift from a student, a banana plant, or basho in Japanese. And it was the exact opposite in every way. It was fragile, it couldn't even produce fruit in Japan's climate, and its big leaves were just shredded by the wind. He looked at that plant's vulnerability, and he saw a mirror of his own life. He didn't see weakness, he saw resilience in that very fragility. And this was so profound, so central to his identity, that he abandoned his old pen name and took a new one. From then on, he was Basho, forever tying himself to this quote-unquote useless plant. And this little comparison just brilliantly illustrates his whole philosophy. You had the great Chinese poet Du Fu, who, during times of political turmoil, sought refuge under a mighty, unyielding camphor tree to shelter from the storm. Basho, he did the opposite. He chose to sit right next to his fragile banana plant, not to fight the storms of life, but to quietly observe them. This embrace of the fragile, of the fleeting moment, it became the absolute core of his art, and it led him to perfect the art form he's most famous for, the haiku. I mean, you've probably heard this haiku before. It seems so simple, right? Maybe even a little underwhelming if you're hearing it for the first time. But trust me, this tiny little poem contains his entire life's philosophy. The whole concept is called Fueki Ryuko, and it's this beautiful idea about the deep harmony between what's permanent, the Fueki, and what's temporary and always changing, the Ryuko. Okay, let's break it down. That ancient silent pond, that represents the eternal Fueki. It's been there for ages. It'll be there for ages to come. It's the backdrop of existence. The frog's splash is the momentary ryuko. It's this one single fleeting event that just rips through the silence and then it's gone. The absolute genius of the poem is that it captures the exact instant that these two massive cosmic forces meet. Now, that balance is one layer of the poem, but a really cool modern analysis by a Turkish scholar suggests that Basho was operating on an even deeper level. He wasn't just being poetic, he was actually describing the fundamental laws of the universe. This theory looks at the world not just by what things are made of, but by their energy, their essential qualities. It's like a whole other lens for seeing the physics of the universe. So look at it this way. The still pond is the perfect symbol of water energy. It's deep, quiet, yin. The frog's dive isn't soft. It's a sharp, sudden, piercing action. That's the quality of metal energy. So you have this metal strike that shatters the watery stillness, and boom, it creates ripples and sound, which is yang energy. In that single moment, a whole new cosmic rhythm is born. Later in his life, a fire destroyed his beloved hut and his banana plant. And once again, Basho just sheds his life. He takes his philosophy on the road, and becomes a perpetual wanderer. But let's be clear, this was no glamorous romantic journey. His travel journals are filled with these hilariously human complaints. I mean, he writes about being bitten by fleas all night, being kept awake by a horse peeing right next to his head, the constant pain of his blistered feet. This shows us a real person, not some enlightened saint just floating above it all. And it's on these travels that he really explores this idea of sabi. Now, this isn't just about being sad or lonely. It's that profound, quiet, almost beautiful feeling you get when you realize just how small and how temporary your own life is against the massive backdrop of nature and time. And this haiku just nails the feeling of wabi-sabi. He sees an old samurai helmet, maybe from a battle centuries ago, but inside, this symbol of human violence, ambition, and conflict, a tiny cricket is just tripping away. It's such a powerful image. It shows how all our grand conflicts, all our desires, are eventually just rendered meaningless, absorbed back into nature's eternal, indifferent cycles. What's so important to remember is that this philosophical detachment didn't make him cold or indifferent. Not at all. In fact, some of his greatest works show this profound compassion, especially for society's most fragile and forgotten people. His philosophy was clearly one of deep connection, not isolation. Basho died on the road at age 50, a traveler to the very end. But his story, his whole life, offers this powerful antidote to the kind of pressures we all face in our modern world. And that brings us right back to that useless plant. We live in a world that is constantly pressuring us to be like those hardy, productive reeds, to be strong, useful, successful. Basho's entire life is basically a testament to the idea that it's okay to be the fragile banana plant, and that you can find a different, maybe even more profound kind of strength in your own vulnerability. And that really just leaves us with a final thought. What's your Basho? What's that seemingly useless passion or that fragile part of yourself that maybe you've been told to hide? Perhaps that's the very thing that helps you endure the storms. Not by being unbreakable, but by being unashamedly, resiliently yourself.